Hey, everybody. Welcome back. It's another episode of Final Boys Status. We're here. The boys are here. The boys of Final Boys Status are here. My name is Luke Haueter. I'm usually around on this podcast. I think I've missed one episode. That's not a detail you need, but I'm around. And as always, I'm joined by the other boys of Final Boys Status. We have Mr. Lanson Lappin.
Heyo, it's me. I'm back once again.
And of course, fan favorite Adam Bone, Senior Adam Michael Hueso.
Hueso.
I like being in the group of one of the other boys. I think that's an accurate description. I'm just part of the other boys in most narratives.
Well, I made the point of specifically calling you out as a fan favorite.
I appreciate that.
There was a group of fans who found our show because of you and named their posse the Final Boys because of you. So I feel like we got to correctly call you out as the fan favorite.
I'm not sure if the people you're referring to, because I did post a picture and sent it to you guys. They were at work and they learned that my podcast was Final Boy Status. I don't think them choosing that name means they actually listen to the podcast. one of them definitely did, and if you're still listening, what's up? But I kind of doubt it. I think it was more to make fun of me, but hey, I'll take it. We'll roll with it as just like the enormity of this podcast's reach to the members of society.
He's listening just so bummed out. He's like, that was me expressing how much I admire you, and you're just disregarding it.
Yeah. He's like, never again. He tears my picture off his wall.
It's like
I
that.
won't fall for that again.
Oh, if you guys haven't seen Auntie Donna's House of Fun on Netflix, it's like that sketch where like they keep upsetting each other, so they run back to their room where they have a giant poster of the person that just upset them and they rip it down off the wall, and it just keeps going and keeps going. It's so silly. But we're not here to talk about comedy. We're not here to talk about sketches. This is Final Boy Status. If you are new to our show, this is your first episode. You picked an interesting one, and I'm excited for you to dive in and see how you feel about things. But this is a show where we talk about horror movies. We do the thing you've done with all your friends. We watch a horror movie, we turn it off, and we go, I think I know how some of them could have got away alive. I think I know how I could have gotten out of that alive. We are the podcast dedicated to figuring out how to survive horror movies. We, as the three most average of Joes, put ourselves into the movie on your behalf and try to figure out if surviving is an attainable goal. And this week we have a good one to jump into. This is usually somebody picks the movie and we like to call out who picked it. The last episode you heard, the next episode you're going to hear, all three of these were picked jointly by the three of us. I have no idea who brought it up first, but all three of us were mutually excited to talk about these movies. But I will say that one man in particular did the research for today's episode. So I'm going to kick it over to him to introduce the movie. And that person is Mr. Lanson Lappin.
I was about to be like, all right, Adam, go for it, man. You take it away, man.
Oh, shoot.
Adam's always doing research. He's ready to write a full like end of term paper on every movie we watch.
Maybe we'll get a sequel to Shadowed. Still holding out for that.
I've been holding out.
The fans are waiting. The fans are waiting. Maybe it will. Maybe it won't. I don't know.
Oh, come on. Don't tease your public like that, man.
Giving us the will they won't they.
Oh, so mysterious is Adam Michael Bone.
Like those tropes.
Love them tropes.
Shoot. But yeah, so kind of to give you a little bit of a rundown. This is, as said before, this is a sequel to Halloween. So this is basically the sequel that's retconning all the other sequels. Yeah, the 1978 classic Halloween. This
can't see it, but I have a small portrait of Michael Myers hanging on the wall behind me.
Gonna be honest, it is pretty tough to see that that's Michael Myers from where I'm sitting, so I don't know how it's gonna play on YouTube.
There's his mask. There's his mask right there. Boop, 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 boop,
Kind of looks like just some pillars. I don't know.
I think it's
I'm not
supposed to be
convinced.
when he's looking in the closet when he's going after Laurie.
Yeah.
Anyway, I only remember it because we had that at an apartment where we lived together, and I remember looking at it daily. So I'm not gonna.
I've seen it before too, but I mean,
Lanson would look at it. Lanson looks at it daily to give himself a fitness goal.
You gotta get jacked like Michael. Be like Mike.
I will not stop until I stab someone into a wall and have them left hanging there, even after 40 years.
Oh, shoot. So anyway, getting back into it. Basically, this is a follow-up from the 1978 Halloween. This is retconning all the sequels. This is supposed to be the direct sequel 40 years later. You got Michael Myers. You have Laurie Strode 40 years later. Michael gets out. Mayhem ensues. And this came out in 2018. It was directed by David Gordon Green. And funny enough, I didn't know this, but Danny McBride actually helped with the screenplay on this. So a little bit of tidbit of information. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, David Gordon Green also, like, before this was known as the guy who directed Pineapple Express. So I don't know. I can't imagine how some people were feeling when they read the press announcement that David Gordon Green and Danny McBride were writing a script for a new Halloween movie.
Right. It's like supposed to be a stoner buddy story with Michael Myers and a buddy in prison.
Laurie Strode and Michael Myers overcome all their difficulties by just, smoking a spliff, just having a conversation.
Enjoying some devil's lettuce.
Correct.
Yes. But yeah, so that's just a little bit of a tidbit of kind of what the movie is like. It's good stuff.
Awesome. Well, so let's get into it. First thing we want to do is we want to talk about the quality of this movie. As a general rule, because we're a spooky podcast, when we rate things on a scale of 13. So let's talk about the general quality of this movie, rating it out of 13. And just to keep things spicy, we're going to kick it over to Adam Bone, because I don't think he's expecting me to call on him first.
Or maybe it was.
Oh,
maybe I was.
Always ready.
Okay. So I was not paying attention. So am I doing quality first, not spookiness first, right?
Yeah, we were going for quality. Yeah.
All right.
I almost didn't want to tell you, just see what you would decide to do in the moment.
I mean, in the moment, I do crazy things, so I'm glad you didn't do that. Who knows what would happen? Yeah.
Adam's mind is all over the place. He's a big fancy businessman. He's got to think about numbers. He's got to think about deadlines. And not right now, we're going to ask him to think about the general quality of Halloween from 2018.
I had never seen this movie before until I watched it with it ending like 30 minutes ago. I kind of first impressions, I really liked it. And I say that in past tense because I think the more I think about it is the more my mind kind of picks apart those plot points that I was like, I don't know about that. But the thing is, it's weird because in the movie I was like, yeah, this is cool. Ooh, I like this. All right, I'll go with this. I don't know, whatever. And then it ended. I was like, and then I thought about it. I was like, okay, there were some things. I don't think that's going to take it too much down for me because overall, I liked this movie. I think it is overall a positive experience for me. To be specific about this, I really enjoyed, I just said it, Jamie Lee Curtis's character, Laurie, who, like Lanson talked about, is now a grandma. She has a daughter. She has a granddaughter. But she's still living in the fear of this, of that one Halloween night, however many years ago. And I loved that aspect of this movie so much. It was so fun to see Jamie Lee Curtis. I loved her character. I loved her acting. I wish there was more of her in the movie, but you know what? It was really cool to see her kind of go badass and be like, I'm going to fetch and own this guy. So it was really fun to see that. I really enjoyed a lot of parts. I liked some of the kills. They were really gory and interesting. And you're like, wow, yep. Michael Myers is still working out in the joint. That guy's still got it. Even with the gray hair and the weird eye, he's fetching got it, man.
He's doing okay for himself.
To kind of point out the parts that I was mentioning where I was like, I think there are a lot of plots and characters that kind of lead nowhere. I think especially kind of the teenage stuff where they've got a party and they got teenage feelings going on. You're like, I don't know what this has to do with anything. And it kind of leads to some interesting kills and some, but at the end of the day, for me, it kind of wasn't really very entertaining. That it was just pretty tropey in the moment and didn't do much for the movie. And I also think the end was a little anticlimactic. I kind of wanted Jamie Lee Curtis to go sicko mode, and in some cases she did, but in other cases it was just one of those things where she was looking around corners with a gun for like a 10-minute straight segment, and you're like, just like, I don't know, I know he's just gonna come, and then when he came and the jump scare happened, that was really lame. So there were moments like that were kind of letting me down, but I think overall it was really fun, really interesting character. I liked the direction they went. I think it was a really solid movie. I'd watch it again, but yeah, it's not gonna blow your socks off probably. I should say that a lot better. It didn't blow my socks off. Everybody has their opinion, and I am subjected to mine. So trying to be better at that.
And out of 13, where does this land for you, Adam?
Oh, fetch, yeah. Oh gosh. What? Okay. So with all that being said, I'm gonna give it a 7.5. I thought it was really solid. I think I gave Halloween a 9 or something. I don't remember. Go back and tell me it was like an 8, or I don't know. If so, oops. But yeah, it was overall, it was a more good experience than it was a bad experience. But yeah, I think there were some things. So
yeah, no, very well articulated, and I can appreciate. I don't agree with you on every point, but I appreciate where you're coming from. You've explained your position well. We do have to hear from our good friend Lance Lappin on his thoughts.
Hear it. I guess we'll go to him.
We get to. We are lucky enough to hear Lanson's Lappin.
I guess since he's here,
Lanson's Lappin's thoughts on David Gordon Green's Halloween sequel.
Landon Slappin.
Please tell us your thoughts on the quality of this movie and a rating out of 12, if you would be so kind.
All right. Yeah. So this is, I really enjoy this movie. This is very much a great addition to the Halloween story. I don't feel like, with some sequels, you're like, okay, well, we've lost our momentum. We've kind of lost where we've come from. But I feel like this is very much rooted in the original. A lot of amazing things that were in the original, as well as I think it's a great update. It's able to add some new things without detracting from what's good about the first one. I love the score. I believe John Carpenter and his son actually, contributed on the score in this one, and it is fantastic. I love it. I listened to it on repeat during the Halloween season, so that is very, very desirable. But yeah, the story itself is really cool. I think it's interesting to see, as Adam mentioned before, kind of the repercussions of, what would happen to a character going through this traumatic experience. But I think it is really cool that Laurie Strode, she really goes on the offensive. She really comes in and wants to prepare and be ready. And for good reason. And holy crap, I feel like Michael Myers is aged like a fine wine. He's better with age, man. He's still got the touch, dude. He did not lose the strength or the killer instinct. It probably got worse, if we're being honest. So yeah, I really like this movie. I think I gave the original Halloween a 9. I will give this, I'll match it pretty close. I'll give this one an 8.5 out of 13.
Very nice. If I may now offer my opinion on the movie, I will say everything you gentlemen said really rings true. I do think that this is, I think, my third time ever watching the movie. And I will say that some of the things that actually really bothered me the first 2 times I watched it, this time through, I was more on board for them. Probably because I had just rewatched the one from 78, and going into it with that frame of reference, it's a direct sequel. this one feels like a really cool continuation, in at least in the regard that they're exploring a lot of the themes that were brought up in that first movie. And there's a lot of it feels very resonant with that first movie in a way that a lot of the other sequels don't. I've not seen every Halloween movie. I've seen a good chunk of them. And I will say that this is my personal favorite Halloween sequel. I think the cinematography is on point. I think the writing is really, really good, especially for a sequel. I think in terms of comedy, this particular sequel knocks it out of the park more than any of the other Halloween sequels. This movie is laugh out loud funny at some parts. And also, like, one of my strongest memories of seeing the original Halloween, the 1978 one, for the first time, is how like devastating and disturbing I found the kills when they started. I was like, genuinely, they were heartbreaking and they were hard to watch. None of the other sequels really brought that back for me until this one. I will say that the kills in this one are hardcore and they hit you right in the chest and you feel them. And in a way that's very similar to how I felt with the first one. And like watching it again and remembering all those was very interesting. So I think it's crazy effective at what it wants to be. It's interesting how now on this third viewing, issues I had with it started to clear up a little bit. But it's phenomenal. Great writing, great soundtrack, great cinematography. It takes everything that was great about the original and it pays tribute to that. The original had a great score. Awesome. Let's double down and give this one a great score. The original had great like tracking shots and steady cam use. Great. Let's do that. The original is very interested in being quiet and atmospheric. Let's bring an element of that in. Like, truly every step along the way, this is a true blue sequel. And I think it's phenomenal. I can't remember what I rated the original Halloween. I'd be surprised if it was lower than a 9 or a 10. I really am excited about this movie and feel like I want to rate it very similarly, but I'm going to knock it down a peg. It is a sequel. It only exists because the OG did. So I'm going to give it an 8.7. Bring it in real close with
very precise.
I want it to be real close to that zone of where I think the original probably landed, which is a 9 or a 10. I think this is a phenomenal movie, very well made. And like I said, I was just hyped watching it and enjoying myself. But now we got to talk about spookiness, right? We talk about horror movies. Sometimes when people listen to the show, I'm sure they're interested in kind of knowing, kind of having a gauge of how scary the movie's going to be. Slasher movies are not always the scariest, but who knows? This one might defy your expectations a bit. Let's turn it back over to Adam to give it a scale of 1 to 13, how spooky the movie was, how scary it was.
Since last podcast, I thought about what Luke had said about slasher movies generally being less scary. And I think I really have to agree with you. I think horror movies that are not slashers, that are like ghosts or something, for me, in a very subjective way, in my opinion, are a lot scarier. They stick with me more, maybe because I'm more superstitious and less scared of real world things, which might be an honestly awful thing. Not that Michael Myers is a real world thing, but being stabbed with a knife, it can happen sometimes. So it is kind of weird for me to have that realization. But yeah, I think this movie never once really scared me. There were kills, I think, like Luke said, that hit you pretty hard and you were like, that was a kill. That guy got like killed. Or that girl got wrecked. And I think that was almost like the squeamish part of me, and not really, I don't know. I guess I have to decide whether I want to put that in the area of fear of it being scary. And I'm almost leaning toward it not. I think it was kind of squeamishly scary, but I think the moments where and I mentioned this a little earlier, the moments where the movie was attempting to be intense, attempting to make you be like, oh my gosh, didn't work for me that much. The two scenes in particular, I already talked about the end scene with Jamie Lee Curtis. The other one, which I'm not quite sure how you guys feel about it, but might be a little bit of a hot take, but the really long scene where Michael is just going and just wrecking people through the neighborhood, kind of one by one, grabbing stuff. For me, that was kind of like, I kind of don't want to see, it's like less scary for me to follow him along in what he's doing, because before it was like, you turn around, he's there, you turn around, he's gone. And there were scenes like that in this movie, but that one scene, it was kind of like, oh, I guess we're kind of like peeking behind the curtain and watching him go from house to house. And it's like, oh, it kind of took away the scariness of it for me. So I think this movie isn't that scary. I don't remember what I gave in spookiness for the first Halloween. So again, people are going to go back and be like, it doesn't add up, but I'm going to give it a 3. I think the 3 will kind of cover the squeamishness, the being like, ooh, that would be a terrible way to go. I don't want anyone to put their boot on my face and then do that crazy thing. That would be awful.
Oh,
and
man.
Everything else,
time.
I wasn't that scared of.
So yeah, I mean, that's how the cookie crumbles sometimes. You got to impress the bone, and if you don't, boy oh boy, you pay the price.
It's how the skull gets crushed and the brains crumble and
Yes.
Oh, we're going to talk about it. But in the meantime, we have to talk about how spooky Lance and Lappin found this film. On a scale of 1 to 13, where would you put it?
Yeah, definitely not the scariest movie in the sense of, coming away from it, I'm gonna like need to sleep with the light on. But definitely, I would kind of put it more in the realm of like very disturbing and something that, is kind of like a train wreck. You're like, I can't help but watch. I know something terrible is going to happen and is happening, but I got to see it through to the end. So I think that aspect of it for me is something that I enjoy. I think there's an element of spookiness to that. And I would actually kind of counter the scene that you brought up, Adam, where he's going through the neighborhood. For me, that actually is like pretty frightening, because it's like the ease in which he just kind of goes through people's homes. And I think it also adds to the intensity of the movie, because it's like, oh, wow, he's been like saving this up for 40 years. Like he's just trying to go all
ready
out,
to unload. Yeah.
He is standing on the accelerator in this movie. So yeah, I definitely can appreciate where you're coming from. But for me, I think that's something that really adds to just how disturbing and frightening of just like somebody picking up a hammer and just walking to a kitchen and braining you, is pretty pretty up there for me. So again, not the scariest movie, more I would put it in the category of disturbing and gory. So out of 13, I'll give it a 4.
Very nice. I guess if I were to give my thoughts on the spookiness at this point, I don't know, man. These movies speak to a very particular fear for me, which is just the idea that, like Lanson said, some guy could just walk in and brain you with a hammer, and like, what are you gonna do about that? Like you're dead at that point. So I think these movies they get to me in a very particular way, where it's that thought of how safe are you really? So I am the type of guy that, like, when I finished this last night, I like turning off the lights behind me as I go to my room, and I'm just like, what if he's right behind me? But yeah, in terms of like what'll really, really frighten you during the movie, there's some well-placed jump scares. I think the jump scare at the end with Michael and the mannequins was actually phenomenal, in my opinion. But like, where this movie excels is in being quiet and unsettling. To bring up a different sequence, we've already talked about him going through the neighborhood, which I thought was phenomenal. That long one shot. I'm gonna bring up something different though, just so we get a little variety in the conversation. I think one of my favorite sequences in the movie is when we watch the two podcasters, where the first one goes into the bathroom and we can see Michael Myers just quietly walking through the background. And then the second podcaster goes to find her and just finds just a wake of dead bodies. And it culminates in that horrifying sequence, which I think is an homage to H2O, where he like drops the teeth into the stall and then just brutalizes both of them in the bathroom. And it's horrifying. And it ends with the first time we hear the Halloween theme. It's played really, really slow. But like it's a phenomenal sequence. And I think that's where this movie really excels, and is just these quiet and unsettling moments to really make you like sit in something and think about it. If put it on a scale of 1 to 13, I'm going to match Lappin. I'm going to give it a 4. I really enjoyed it. It really kind of creeped me out, especially right before I went to bed, but also I didn't lose any sleep last night. So I think this is a good one. That being said, definitely, my 12-year-old nephew kept being like, this is a movie I could watch, right? And I was like, well, no. And he's like, but you said it wasn't that scary. And I'm like, well, that doesn't mean it's for you. Like, it's brutal, it's bloody, and yeah, some of the deaths in particular are like gore-tastic. So just because it's not super scary doesn't mean safe for kids. And we're going to move right along. Now we're going to start getting into the meat of this podcast. The part that we might enjoy the most, to be honest with you guys, and that you guys hopefully enjoy the most, because it's the bulk of our podcast. We are now going to talk about how to survive it. And we need a place to start when it comes to surviving a horror movie. So what we usually do is we start by talking about our killer, our villain. And we have a great one, folks. It's Michael Myers. We now have 2 movies worth of knowledge about him to use as we discuss him. Where do we start on this, guys? What are the strengths? What are the weaknesses? How do we start the conversation about Michael Myers?
This is interesting because we just barely did the original Halloween that had Michael Myers as that antagonist, and he's back again. So I think to me, even though if after this you're like, this is kind of a negative review from Adam, but it felt like Michael Myers. Like, this was Michael Myers. I think they did the character to where he felt the same. He has the same strengths, I think, as he did in the first one, where he's buff. He can just wreck you. There's really not a whole lot of obstacles that you could throw in your way that's going to slow this guy down. So I think all that same stuff that we probably talked about in the first episode, where he just has biceps probably of steel, and all of that, I don't think age at all is going to be a weakness for this guy. You do not see the weakness of him being old, unless you guys can think of something at all in this movie. He's better than ever, like we've already talked about. So to add that there, he's the original Michael Myers with like up a notch as far as brute strength and ability.
Yeah, for sure. I liked what Lappin said, where it's like he had his killing spree as a 20-year-old back in 78, 79, and now he's been in prison for 40 years just saving it up, just seething, and just and he knew, like, when I get out, I got to go hard, and he does. I think something I would like to point out, if you guys are cool with me jumping in, one misstep that a lot of the Halloween sequels made that this movie avoids is, in most sequels, Mike is obsessed with finding and killing Laurie Strode. She is his fixation, to the point in like the H2O, in H2O, Halloween 20 Years Later is the full title of that one. Laurie Strode lives in California, and Michael Myers follows her out there. Like, in the rest of the movies, basically Haddonfield is his stomping ground, and that feels more natural for him. I like that this movie removed that fixation. Like, they do have a confrontation, but that's because and some people might not like how this was written. I liked it quite a bit. it's because people are desperate to see what happens when they come together. So we're heavy into spoiler alert territory guys. Like, if you weren't expecting it, you've clearly never heard the podcast before, but we're going to get into spoilers. The only reason Michael and Laurie even have a showdown at all is because Dr. Sartain has decided that's what needs to happen. In terms of where Michael's at, he's just killing. That's all he wants. He's just an unstoppable force. And I think that's something we have to acknowledge about this character is in other sequels, you might be able to look at him and say, well, he's more preoccupied with Laurie Strode. In this one, if you are in his path, he's taking you out. If he has the opportunity to kill you, he will. And he does so again and again. And I think that's one of the things I like about this sequel, because it adds to that tension of the first movie where the girls he kills are literally just the first girls he saw in Haddonfield. It had nothing to do with like they were special or they were unique. He literally saw them walking to school and thought, yep, those are the ones. And I think this movie thematically resonates with that great, where Michael Myers is just killing wherever he can.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with you guys. I think, if anything, I mean, geez, it seems like he's got that old man strength, like he's hitting his prime now in his like 60s and 70s.
Just like Clint Eastwood. Man,
underneath the mask.
That guy just gets more macho with age.
Just makes me want to cry.
His most recent movies are just a testament to masculinity. There's never been a point watching those where I'm like, man, this guy's been alive too long.
Oh, shoot. But yeah, I mean, definitely, I enjoyed that in this movie, they were willing to kind of show a little bit more of, Michael is made of flesh and bone. Like Laurie ends up shooting off part of his hand when he reaches at the muzzle of a shotgun, which would absolutely happen to a human being. But the thing about him is he's just so durable. Like his mind is just set on a goal and he's going to do it. He's really just like watching a hurricane or watching a tornado. It's a force of nature that's going to do what it's going to do. I think as far as weaknesses, there is a point straight up where he would have been killed, by Officer Hawkins if Sartain had not killed him. So, I mean, that right there, if he unloads his clip into his brain, that's it, But because he does have help, he's able to live on. And as Luke said, we have that final showdown. But yeah, I mean, I guess those are kind of a couple of his strengths, couple of his weaknesses. He's, as mentioned before, he's very focused. He's just out there to kill. He doesn't really have a goal other than just he's out for blood.
I will point out that just like the OG movie, this Michael Myers is not in a hurry. Michael Myers is cool to take his time. He doesn't feel the need to run. And I think that's something that could be utilized. I mean, I think in this movie, there's really only one person who survives. Well, outside of the Strode women, or as Jamie Lee Curtis calls them, the Hallow women. Outside of them, there's really only one person who survives the encounter with Michael Myers, and I believe the character's name is Julius. It's the little boy that Vicky's babysitting.
Yeah.
And really what that comes down to is like, as soon as he sees Michael Myers, he books it and he runs as far away as he can. And Michael Myers is slow enough that he can't catch up. So I will point out that's like such a stereotypical slasher thing of, he never runs. He always walks after his victim. Michael Myers makes it work for him, but it could work against him if you're facing off against the guy. I will say that. I think there were a couple times in this movie where a person really could have gotten away, but they're just kind of like lying there, like frozen in terror, I guess, or something, while Michael Myers comes to get them.
Or they're wearing socks and there's a slippery wood floor.
Oh my God. Like that's part of what makes that particular kill so brutal. Is it's just like, oh, that sucks. That
Right.
sucks so bad.
Yep.
But we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that in a second when we get to the meat bags. For now, we're talking about the man himself, the killer from Manila, except he's really from Illinois. The killer from Illinois, and I feel like, so when it comes to speed, I feel like that is something that you could use to your advantage, and the only person that gets away other than the Strode women is the kid who just runs away. So I feel like it's worth talking about. And like, we know the kids aren't safe because he straight kills that kid in the truck, which is like first time I saw this movie really took me by surprise. Although, so another thing that we could talk about in terms of Michael is he does seem to have a stopping point, because there, during that long one take we talked about through the neighborhood where he's going from house to house killing, we do watch him walk up to a crib with a crying baby inside, and you have to sit there with your heart in your throat for a second going, oh fuck, he's going to kill this kid, and then he just walks away. So clearly there is a cutoff point where you are too young to kill. I'm not clear on where that age is, because like I said, there's like that kid who seems to be between the ages of 10 and 13 that he like just friggin' snaps his neck in the truck. So worth talking about that. If you're a kid, I don't know, maybe.
How fast can you run?
It's kind of what it comes down to, isn't it? But there, he does seem to have some sort of weird sense of like, I'm not interested in that.
Right.
Like, I don't know. Lance and Lappin might say there might come a point for Michael Myers where there's just no sport. So
no sport.
No
I don't want to
sport.
kill the baby. It's too easy, like taking the life and the candy of a baby.
But maybe that's an element of Michael Myers. So, you know, like clearly he's cool attacking Laurie Strode, but maybe there's somebody who's too old and infirm and he's just bored by that. And maybe there are kids that are too young, so he's bored by that, you know, no sport.
Maybe
so I feel like it's worth considering that there are maybe categories of people that Michael Myers is uninterested in killing.
Yeah, you know,
I think. Sorry, did I cut you off?
No, you're good, man. Go ahead.
This is what I said about the last episode, but I think it's worth bringing up again that Michael is a blunt object, knife wielding person. He doesn't have any interest in firearms. And Laurie is armed to the teeth. And I think even though it's Michael Myers, and because of that, somehow they're even, you know, because he's a force of nature, she definitely has the range advantage. And I think if you have a gun and you know how to use it, I would like to argue you have the advantage, because he doesn't mess around with that. It's not going to be a standoff. He's bringing a knife to a gunfight. He does have the upper hand, and it works for this movie. Like, it didn't feel like, man, like, yeah, the way the writing works, I think it worked with the fact that they were kind of on even grounds. But I think in the real world, if you have a gun and they're holding a knife, that gives you the advantage. So I just want to point that out again. And I felt it in this movie. If you're armed to the teeth, I think you do have the advantage, even with Michael Myers. So I don't know.
And just to support your claim, I mean, in the end, the Halloween, like, they get the upper hand because there's that brilliant moment in the scene where Karen is at the bottom of the stairs, just like luring him out by acting like, oh, I can't do it, I can't, and she's bawling and she's crying, and then as soon as she sees him, she's gotcha, and she just shoots him, and it's incredible. It's amazing. But like, they get the upper hand from that. Like, all you need is one good shot and you can really turn the tide. So to support you, even the movie kind of has that statement, like, one good shot can give you the upper hand.
Definitely. So I think that is a pretty major weakness of his, strength with the other guys. So kind of goes both ways, but also cars can wreck him pretty good too. So if you're in a car, you can just run over that fool.
That was very satisfying, by the way. Boom. The way that deputy's like, all right, hold on.
What I thought was going to happen was that someone was dressing up like Michael Myers and he just and
I
I
thought
think
it was going to be a Ben Tramer.
yeah, and I
Right.
remember you talking about and so I realized that's why I thought that because you brought that up last episode. I was like, oh man, that'd be funny if it happened again this time. They're like, gosh dang it again. But
How many
No.
times are we going to kill some innocent guy wearing a Michael Myers mask?
Don Knotts,
say
you got to
Michael
stop
Myers.
dressing like Michael Myers. But I like to. He's kind of scary.
It's nice and spooky, Andy.
I like his knife.
Well, all right. I feel like Michael Myers is such a monolith. He's hard to talk about. He's hard to break down. I feel like we're going to have a lot more to say about the victims in this movie, the people who die, the people who survive. What's the difference between them? What are the decisions they make? Could we make better decisions? Let's get into it. Does anybody have a place where they want to start?
Yeah. So I think just, I guess, to kind of give it a more generalized category of victims, I feel like, as I mentioned before, there are people that it was just you were at the wrong place at the wrong time and you ran into Michael Myers and you died. And there are some where it's like we talked about the babysitter who ended up, just due to poor footwear on a very slippery surface, could not get away. So I feel like there's there are some victims where you have an element of choice, and then there are some victims where it's just like, well, he got the jump on you. That's about it.
I feel like you can very distinctly divide the victim list into two categories. They either knew about Michael Myers or they didn't. And I feel like when it comes to the people who didn't know about Michael Myers, there isn't really anything you can do, right? Like the people in the houses where he just strolls in and kills them. Like, what are they supposed to do? And even Vicky, the babysitter, like, how is she supposed to get away from that? Like, that really is like such that every time I see it, I'm like, oh, that sucks so bad. The way she slips and falls and he just gets her. Like, it sucks. But how is she supposed to get away? But then there are the
Crocs.
Yeah.
Crocs.
Wear some Crocs next time. Put those
Sorry.
bad boys in 4-wheel drive and you'll be good to go.
Not to interrupt you, just thought I'd throw that in there.
You're totally good. But I feel like it's two distinct categories. And the people who don't know about him are basically like the teenagers and the random people in the city that he happens to come across. And I don't know, there isn't really a way to get away from that. And their deaths all make sense to me. But the people who are more aware of Michael Myers, I feel like there's more room to operate. And so our focus should maybe be on the people who knew about him because they had more choices available to him. Do you guys have any disagreement from you guys, or do you think I'm on the right track?
yeah, I agree. I think if you're just in the line of fire and you're unexpecting, there's nothing to say about it. There is one scene involving a teenager I'd like to hear your guys' thoughts on. I think so. It's the scene where a kind of teenager tried to kiss the girl. Because he's drunk and a douche, and she left, and then he was like, oh man, he's sitting on the grass. Myers is standing like the creepiest shot in the show, and you're like, holy crap. And the dude is just like talking to him like he's this guy. I think it was a really funny scene, and I actually liked it a lot. So I'm not saying anything based on the quality of the scene, but I think in real life, I think even if you're really after saying a couple things and him just standing there, I'd get the fetch out of Dodge. I'd be like, this is a really creepy thing that's happening, especially once he starts moving closer. I'd get the fetch out of there, even though I don't think that's how motion lights really work. Again, still a pretty cool scene. I think in that situation, he didn't know about Michael Myers for sure. So he might have seen the mask and not been like, oh my gosh, it's him. He was more just like, oh, some guy dressed up as Halloween. But I don't think I think he could have gotten it a little bit sooner and been like, no, okay, I'm out of here. This is not a good situation going on. Something's fishy here. I don't know. I don't know if you guys think differently, but I think that was one where it's like, yeah, he could have gotten out of there, even if he's not good at climbing fences.
That whole scene from beginning to end is or that whole section of the story from beginning to end is tough because it starts with them like leaving the dance and he does like the come on, you deserve better than that. You're the prettiest,
Yeah,
nicest. And you're
you're
like,
like,
oh, I know what you're going to do, but please don't do
Mhm.
it. And then he does it.
So you kind of want to see him die. Like, I mean, that's kind of why you watch some
Yeah.
slasher movies is you're like, this guy sucks. Let's see him die. I don't
Yep.
feel that way in real life
What?
about people, but
Your opinion on that guy was he deserved to die because he was drunk and had poor timing?
yes, I stand by it, Luke.
He was weak. He didn't belong in the dojo.
If you get rejected, Michael Myers has full rights to come and kill you.
You either kill yourself or he kills you. Either way, you're dying.
You're gonna have to hang yourself from a light fixture like the samurai of old. So here's what I'll say about that. The thing that sells that scene for me and makes it play realistically is he thinks Michael Myers is somebody that he knows. Again, maybe he hangs around just a little too long. But at the end of the day, like I think Michael Myers has the drop on him in that situation and will get the best of him. I mean, as soon as he goes to climb the fence, he gets stuck, and that's how Michael Myers gets him. I think that plays out relatively the same no matter when he decides to go for the fence.
That's fair.
And I think the reason it goes on as long as it does is because he genuinely thinks it's a person he knows. I think he says Mr. Elrond. He's like, hi, sorry I'm in your yard. Look, I'm having a bad night. So clearly he has a relationship with this person who he thinks it is. And I think that kind of changes the dynamic a bit. I don't know. I have trouble imagining that guy's outcome changing all that dramatically, because getting over the fence is still a big prospect and Michael Myers has the upper hand at that exact moment in time. And plus it's hard to imagine a world where that guy gets away because his kill's pretty darn cool. He gets friggin' impaled through the jaw by the fence and it's really gross and nasty looking.
Yeah.
Like it in my head, it's hard to be like, yeah, he easily gets away from that because I'm like, I kind of want to see the guy impaled on the fence.
I'm glad you're with me there.
I kind of like it.
It has nothing to do with the fact that he poorly expressed his feelings for a girl. I feel like I'm like
everything to do with that.
I feel like I'm dancing
Everything.
around. I feel like I'm dancing around it. So let me just say this: as a teenager, I was in a remarkably similar situation to that once. And so if I'm defending him a little too hard, it's because it's like, is he really that bad? Did he just kind of misread a thing? Did he kind of misread it? Maybe that's what happened. Maybe he's not that bad and he doesn't deserve to die. Maybe.
I mean,
maybe
that's fair.
not.
I
And
think
Adam's
we all
like,
look at our child selves. I mean, they're not children, but I feel like it's my child self, and I'm like, yeah, okay. I mean, I was never at a drunk Halloween party, but I feel like I could have been that guy. But still, watching it was still satisfying, and I've got to be honest about that.
I'm just imagining, I'm like, well, he doesn't deserve to die, does he? And Adam's like, he does. Gets up, walks out of frame. Next thing you know, he's behind me. Just, wow.
We'll do that in post. It's all good.
Yeah, we'll edit that in
Chop.
later. Yeah,
Yeah.
that'll be good.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So let's see. If there's a couple people I would like to point out, is the podcasters, right?
Yeah.
Because their death scene is brutal. It's a great way to kickstart Michael Myers. Is he's out of prison, he's back on the street. What I will say is that it is frustrating when I was watching it. It is frustrating to me that the girl whose name I cannot remember, the female podcaster, does not do nearly enough to try to get away. And some people might get after me because obviously she goes through a lot, but like when the guy busts in and actually tries to fist fight Michael Myers, there's a long period of time where she can crawl under the stall, run out the door and get away.
Mm-hmm.
And she just like keeps hiding and cowering in the stall and like Michael Myers first friggin' bashes that one guy's head in and then has time to just walk back over and break her neck because she just hung out in that stall for some reason. I will also say, I think Vicky, even after she slips, she's just lying on the ground a little bit too long.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of bothered me. She kind of is just lying there and he has time to walk over and grab at her. I think for both of them, there was a good window of time there when they could have been making a getaway. But the female podcaster in particular, because she's aware of Michael Myers, she knows what he's capable of. She knows that he's here attacking. It's truly bizarre to me that she wasn't like taking every opportunity she could to just get as far away from him as possible. She full let her compatriot fist fight the guy and get his head bashed in while she was just chilling in the bathroom like, I don't know, maybe he'll win.
Also, it's a gas station bathroom. Run away from there as fast as you can, even when there's not a killer.
You know how much shorter this scene would have been if she got to the bathroom, looked in it, and was like, never mind, I'll hold it.
No. Yeah, for real, dude. And I guess that's a part of the scene too. It's like, what a terrible place to die.
Yeah. Yeah, that, like I said, that scene is great, but I got so frustrated watching it this go around because I did not understand why she wasn't booking it. Any chance she got, she should be booking it, I thought.
Yeah.
So that's a criticism I have of that character.
Do you mind if, not to cut you off, do you mind if I jump in real quick?
Please do.
So this may be kind of dark of me, but there was just like something that was funny about when Michael killed the dad, because it seemed like it was a very dad thing where it's like, what's going on out here? Oh, I'm getting choked, guys.
I kind of laughed at that too. I'm gonna be honest with you.
I love that. I love that dad character. I think his name. Yeah. I think the character's name is Ray.
Yeah.
I really do like that character. But you know he's gonna die. Like you've got to thin the herd and get it down to just the Strode women.
Right.
And yeah, like the way that goes down, you get that really cool like jack-o'-lantern with a human head thing, which is grody and cool. And then he literally just backs up into Michael Myers like, whoa, gosh.
Wow, you sure are a big fella. Oh, a tight grip you got there.
What's that, a wind chime?
You like, I remember we had like a joke about the specific model of knife, and that seems like a very dad thing. Is that a B94-2 Winchester 43-4? Wow.
That's the choice. That's the choice of Michael Myers, the serial. Wait a minute.
Hold on a minute. Oh yeah, that's sharp.
Yeah, man. I thought that was kind of. I guess I understand why his character did it. That his daughter's still missing. The cops leave for a second, then they come back. Naturally, you might be like, "Hey, did you find my daughter?" But at the same time, like, you're supposed to be on full lockdown, and he just walks right out the front door and is like, hey guys, what's going on?
Right. Yeah, and I think for me, rather than me being like, oh, that was a dumb move, it just made me laugh. I thought it was just noteworthy to be like, that's a funny death in my opinion.
Those two cops, by the way, so funny.
Yeah, like, I know, right?
And I'm pretty sure one of them is just a cop in real life, and the other guy was the special effects artist for the movie. So they're both basically just doing glorified cameos. They're not trained actors. They're not improvisers. They're just genuinely having that weird conversation about their lunch. And it's so funny.
Right.
And even like when they die, there's something kind of funny about like they roll up to the car and they're like, well, I guess we have to go take a look. Yeah. And they get out and they're walking forward and you see Michael Myers just standing behind him and you're like, that sucks, man. Sucks to be on duty that night.
Yep.
We're gonna talk about. Can I get into one death that really frustrates me with this movie, and I think is completely avoidable?
Yeah,
is in fact our deputy friend, our main deputy that we follow through the majority of the movie. His death at the hands of Dr. Sartain.
Yeah,
sucks balls.
Yeah, dude.
So here's the thing. I'm more at peace now. Like this third time watching it, I felt more at peace with the Dr. Sartain twist because I had time to sit with it. This time watching the movie, I knew it was coming and I let myself kind of see how it was relevant thematically. but it's kind of a sucky twist. I think we can all be honest. It's not the best.
Yeah.
And like it's a good writer's tool to get certain things out of the movie, but I definitely don't think it's the strongest part of the movie. I was fine with it this go around, but that death in particular is so brutal because literally a scene ago, the deputy was telling the sheriff, I'm not taking this doctor with me. He's just going to get in the way.
Yeah.
And then he caves when the police chief is like, nah, take him with you. He's going to be valuable to the case. He caves, takes the guy with him, and then the guy just stabs him to death. And it sucks so bad because that guy was fully about to waste Michael Myers.
Right. He was like getting it done.
Which I loved, by the way. I loved the whole backstory of that character, that he's the one that caught Michael that night in 1978. And he feels that regret of like, I shouldn't have let him live. I'm not going to make the same mistake twice. When I find him tonight, I am going to kill him. I thought that was such cool characterization. And we see him like following through on that promise, like right from the get-go. As soon as he sees him, he's like, yeah, I'm going to hit him with this car. That's a way to start things. And then Dr. Sartain tries to cover and says like, oh, you killed him when you hit him with the car. And he's like, that's nice. Let me shoot him.
Right. Double tap.
Let me double tap this SOB.
I think overall, that's just kind of a stronger position for a lot of the characters in this movie. Well, two of the characters in this movie is they're like, we're going to play offensive. Jody was whatever. Jamie Lee Curtis. Laurie was like, I'm gonna go crazy. I'm gonna hunt this guy down. The deputy was like, I'm gonna hunt this guy down. So I think, as opposed to most slashers where they're just like, oh, is he behind me? These guys were like, no, we're gonna get ahead of this. To make it an interesting movie, it still was a struggle, and they never were totally ahead of him, but it was still, I think, a good solid point in the characters where they're like, no, we are hunting this guy just like he hunted. We're gonna play his own game. So I thought that was a good check in the part of the victims for this one.
I will say, with the knowledge that Dr. Sartain is evil and he was the one that let Michael Myers loose on the bus, and he's the one that's going to like assist him moving forward. Knowing all that was coming, it's so much more satisfying when we watch that kid accidentally freaking shoot Sartain on the bus.
Yeah, right.
Which is already a funny scene. Like he comes on, that kid's pointing a gun at everything, and you're like, that's a bad idea. And for like the smoke, like it's like a Chekhov's gun, where it's like you see a kid who's pointing a gun at everything he sees, and you're like, well, he's going to shoot something. And then he shoots something. It's phenomenally funny. And just like the comedy of Dr. Sartain, don't shoot. And then he just full shoots him.
Damn.
This movie, oh man, just on a personal level, it would have been so much more satisfying if you freaking shot Dr. Sartain in the head. And then Frank Hawkins, the greatest deputy of all time, I think that's his name, doesn't have to get friggin' pen knifed in the neck by that loser.
Yep.
I would have been much happier with this movie if Frank, you knew Hawkins was going to die. Again, it had to come down to the 3 Strode women. But I would have liked the movie a lot more if Michael Myers had killed Hawkins, not freaking, what does Laurie call him? New Loomis?
The Turkish Loomis.
Turkish Loomis. So yeah, I'm going to say, like, in terms of me, if I was in Frank's shoes, if my opinion is I don't want this guy going around with me the rest of the night, I probably wouldn't have caved. Like, if nothing else, we know that Dr. Sartain is very sympathetic to Michael Myers.
Mm-hmm.
We know that from like the very beginning. He's very keen to understand Michael Myers. He wants to keep him out of, he doesn't want the transfer to happen because he says the other hospital is inhumane. If I'm Frank Hawkins and I got this hate for Michael Myers, I wouldn't be giving Dr. Sartain the time of day. I'd be like, if you want him on the search, pair him with the different set of cops, because he's not going with me. Yep. No way in hell am I bothering with this guy.
Yep.
So, I I mean, you can't fault him too much. It's not like he knew that's what was going to happen. But
Yeah.
If there, in terms of like avoidable deaths in this movie, I'll say Frank Hawkins is avoidable because, like, if he had doubled down on I don't want to be stuck babysitting this guy, he would have gotten away and maybe would have killed Michael Myers. Like,
yeah.
But I mean, in terms of the people who know about Michael Myers, like, really the only two that I don't know, we've talked about them both, the dad, whatever his name was, Ray, I think, and then the cop. Those are the two that feel most avoidable. Sartain, obviously you're gonna die because you're dumb enough to take Michael Myers' side. He doesn't care,
Nope.
And his death is very satisfying.
Yeah.
Getting his head crushed like a watermelon. I love it.
Boot to the face.
Yeah, it's crazy. Every time I see it, I'm like, oh, that's awesome. I love it. I love that it's in this movie.
That's metal.
We have 3 final girls in this movie who all, like, they're all pretty great, honestly. I really like how Allison plays it. She runs away, she gets help, and people come out and help her. And even when she's in the car and Dr. Sartain keeps mumbling about, like, why I tried to get him to talk to me, but he won't. And she's like, oh, he talked to me.
Yeah.
Pull over the car. I'll tell you what he said. Like, I loved how she played that. And at the end, of course, she gets nasty with the knife and gets in there to help her mom and grandma. Laurie Strode, maybe not the best mother because she's gone like full doom cult survivalist, but she is prepared. She is ready for shit to go down. And Karen Page did have a slightly traumatizing childhood, but she can hold her own.
For sure.
And at the end of the movie, it does. Like I said, the thing that puts them over and gets them in a position to win the day is that moment where she lures him out by acting, like weak and cowardly. And then as soon as she sees him, she hits him with that gunshot, and just, it's a domino effect from there where the tide shifts in their favor. So our 3 final girls are a high bar to cross, honestly. In terms of the rest of our victims, there's really only 2 that I see as being avoidable. That's Hawkins and Ray, the dad. But in their situations, I don't know that I could avoid it. And if I don't, and dying at the hands of Michael Myers, like, the guy's adaptable. He can get to you. But anyway, any final thoughts on the victims, on Michael himself before we start wrapping it up?
I do have to say, I thought something that was good in the movie was when Karen does take the shot. Like, I like that it was, like, obviously it's a great shot. It's in the neck, but, like, it's more realistic. She probably hasn't, just knowing that it was a traumatic childhood, she probably hasn't, like, fired a rifle all that much. So I guess my thing is, like, it's more realistic that she, like, I guess what I mean is if she picked up the gun and, like, instantly got a headshot, it'd be like, well, okay, movie, like, whatever. But I did enjoy that, like, she had the skills and she got it done, but it wasn't like, okay, well, that's like, okay, she's suddenly a Navy SEAL. All right.
Yeah, that felt in touch with her character too, where it's like she spent, and she said that earlier in the movie, she's like, I've spent my entire life trying to get over what my mom taught me. So she's literally spent years trying to forget the training. So I like that it's still there. It's still in her, but it, again, like you said, it's not like she's gonna perfect 10 out of 10 headshot that bad boy. So I think we've raised some excellent points. Adam and Lanson in particular always talk about interesting things, and I'm here. But now we get into the section of the podcast where we hand out some awards, right? There's 2 categories. There's final boy status and final girl status. Final boy status is for the character in the movie who does their best. They make it a long way. They do pretty well for themselves, but in the end, they can't quite take the title. Ray's kind of a good example. Maybe Frank Hawkins, where they both make it through big chunks of this movie, but just a critical misstep causes their death. And then we have final girl status, which is you walk away from this movie. You are one of the Hallow women. You overcome Michael Myers and you survive the entire movie from beginning to end. Let's start with final boy status. Putting ourselves into this movie, can we get it? Let's start with Adam. If you yourself are in this movie, could you achieve final boy status?
It's kind of hard to say because I'm trying to think of who to put myself as, because I think Michael Myers, as we've talked about, is very just like, I'm going to kill what I see. Like, if you are just at the wrong place at the wrong time, stop at the wrong gas station, live in the wrong house, you're in his trajectory. But 99.999% of this town is unaffected and it's fine. So I think if I am walking in his way, I don't stand a chance. There's absolutely no way I'm getting past this guy. But I think putting myself as like one of the main characters who would be like hunting him and intentionally putting myself in his way, I think I can at least make final boy status. I think I'll have a gun on me. I'll keep my distance. I'll wait for the right moment to jump in. I won't just like run into really tight corners where there's no really way to escape. I'll always have an exit strategy in the back of my head. I think I'm going to make it that far. If I, again, am like putting myself in his way and trying to find him and trying to hunt him down.
Solid. That's a final boy status achieved from Adam Bone. Now we'll kick it over to Mr. Lanson Lappin to give his take on final boy status.
Yeah, I think for me, there's like two different scenarios for final boy status. One is you just lock your doors. So, Michael's like, yeah, it's a locked door. Not really worth the chase.
Everybody in this movie makes a big deal about the fact that Michael Myers never talks. What they don't know is he like talks to himself all the time. Like he tries the door and it's locked. He's like, oh, damn it. Next house, I guess. I don't know.
All right, Michael, the juice is not worth the squeeze on this one. Let's try the next one.
This is too much of a hassle. Let's just go down a door.
I'd like to think he's internally actually just very insecure and anxious all the time. And he's like, Michael, you can do this. You've practiced this in the mirror for so many days in the institution.
You've been dreaming of this. You've been dreaming of this. Remember,
this is your dream.
Remember, the energy you spend in dreaming something comes back to you and helps you bring it to life.
He's listening to like self-motivation tapes in his ears. It's like, you are strong. You are vigilant. You can do anything. He's like, yeah, yes, I am. Yeah.
I'm practicing on all his pillows.
Just doesn't have a knife, doesn't have like a head to hold. He's just practicing the motion.
No.
Oh man.
That's it.
There it is.
Like that? No. Okay. You got to come. Yep. You got to commit. You have to have the follow through. Don't just cut to the neck, cut through the neck. I like that. I think that's funny. For me, when you brought that up, it almost made me think of like he's just going along and he just sees a reflection of himself and he's like, what are we doing, buddy? Come on.
What led me to this? I don't know.
Anytime he sees a reflection of himself without the mask, he's just like, I just don't feel like myself.
Man, that eye is really messed up. I should have gotten that looked at by like an optometrist or something.
God, why didn't I fix that? Because I feel like I could have fixed that.
If I got a robot eye, that'd be cool. Then I could kill a lot more people. Anyway, back to Halloween stuff.
Anyway, back to doing my clean lifts out in the weight yard.
Holy crap! Like, also, who is in charge of the workout facility at this freaking place? They're
Shouldn't be allowed.
I do love Dr. Sartain. Like at the beginning, it feels like they're like giving exposition like after the fact. He says at the beginning, like, yeah, at this facility they do have time to exercise, and I'm like, well, no, duh. Michael Myers is in prime condition.
Just bending the bars, bro. Snapping some plates. Yeah, so I guess in that situation, I'm just the type of person I like to lock my doors, and that's kind of a thing for me. So I think if I do that, I'd be okay if I was just kind of in the neighborhood and he's going along. And I think I could at least be Ray, where I'm just the hapless dad that's like, oh, da dope, da dope, what's going on here? So I think in those whoops a doodle, guys. So yeah, I think in those two situations, based on those two situations, I would give myself final boy status.
Yeah. All right. Just jumping right into it for me. If I'm in the camp of I know about Michael, I think final boy status is a thing I could achieve. I think I'd be very cautious. I'd lock my doors, like you said. I don't have the like survival instincts that Laurie Strode has, but I think I could at least I could make a run for it and I could do my best, and I think that would turn out not horribly. So I'll give myself final boy status in that regard, assuming I'm in the camp that knows about Michael, knows he's out and about. If I'm not, hard to say, hard to say. But let's be honest. Final boy status is well and good, but there's a championship on the table. And we want to go for we want those MVP rings, Let me mix up several different metaphors. There's a 3-pointer to be scored, and we're standing at the tee, getting ready to snap back to the quarterback, if you know what I mean. We got to talk about final girl status, right? Which is what everybody wants. They want to survive the horror movie. So let's get into it. And we're going to start with Mr. Adam Bone. Do you think final girl status is in the cards for you?
I do. I am going to employ a similar thing I've done before, which is in the last Halloween episode, how I survived that movie was I was aware of Michael Myers before and I prepared. And when the time came, I was able to woo him out of his babysitter things. And I'm the same person. So 40 years later, let's say I didn't kill him. I got him away and then he got reinstitutionalized. Now he's back and I am already aware of his stuff and I've been preparing for him, but I've been preparing for him in a different way. To make a long story short, I signed up for the military. I'm in the military. I get all sorts of rankings. I don't know anything about military, so I'm not going to be using specific terms, but I find myself in a submarine that has a missile with a large nuclear warhead inside it.
Oh, shoot.
And I turn to my men after reading a newspaper article that says Michael Myers escaped off a bus. And I say, gentlemen, it's time. I open the switch. I aim it in a certain direction toward land. And I hit toward the button. I'm specific about it. I'm going for Haddonfield. And I'm
shoot. The Myers house in Haddonfield.
It's done. And then I say I've become death, the destroyer of worlds, as a mushroom cloud goes in the background and Haddonfield is wiped off the map.
Straight Oppenheimer. I like it.
Hey man, sometimes that's what you got to do. Either to stop.
Yeah.
Either to stop the Japanese or stop Michael Myers.
It's all the same. Got to break a few omelets. Am I right?
You got to break a few omelets to make an egg.
Yep.
Oh, shoot, dude. I think the thing that I liked about that, me and my dopey brain, I'm like, is he going to how is he going to get to Illinois in a submarine?
I just drive it up on land.
He's like,
it's the Hollow Earth theory from Godzilla versus Kong. He just follows one of the tunnels to Illinois.
I'm like, is he just stationed in one of the Great Lakes? Like, what's going on here? Lake Ontario, boys.
Not even the Great Lake, just Haddonfield Reservoir. I'm in this big old submarine.
And it has nuclear warhead capabilities. That's awesome. I love that.
Just pointed at the insane asylum or whatever. I'm like, I'm ready for you, buddy.
You're opening up Google Maps to put into the computer targeting system. Boop, 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 boop.
Yep.
Yes. Good.
I'm just imagining this pond is just barely big enough for the submarine. Like you can take the submarine exactly like 20 feet down and it's just sitting on the bottom.
We just go up and down. Sometimes we go up and I'm like looking above and then we just go down.
You've been in the submarine for so long that people think the lake is half as big as it really is. Like because you're just like covering the bottom. Fantastic. I'm a big fan of your work. But there's another gentleman who I'm sure has a plan for survival.
Jesus.
I'm interested in. Yeah, that's true.
Sorry. I just wanted to say Jesus.
He's always here when we record.
Hey man, he's got a plan.
Watching.
He's got a plan. But we talk about a man with a plan to survive. We got to kick it over to Lance and Lappin. I don't know a man who's more capable of formulating a plan to survive. Lance and Lappin, is final girl status in the cards for you this go around?
Oh yes. Let me tell you how. And I think it's funny. He's a man with a plan. It may not be a good plan, but it's a plan after all.
It's a plan.
Yeah. So I'm going to put myself in the shoes of Laurie Strode. I think that's the character that I'll be in this situation. I think that, it's kind of just deep down as any sort of creature, and especially as a human being, you have the fight and flight response. So I think I would have Laurie Strode's preparation, but I would be in flight mode. And let me explain what I mean by that. So I would definitely booby trap my house, but not for Michael. It would be for other people so that they could get caught in the fly trap and he could come along and pick them off. And then I would have my own secret tunnel system out of my house, which I would make sure to totally get that door. Once I'm out, it's going down. Nobody else is escaping with me. Sorry, mailman, my grandkids, whatever, dude. We'll go through some trial runs with that for sure, but yeah, when Michael breaks into my house, I'm also gonna be like, hey Karen, you should come over to my house, I'm really sorry and we should catch up. Psych, I'm out of here. She gets pelted in the head with a paint can like it's Home Alone on the staircase, and Michael can satisfy his bloodlust while I get away. So in the end, again, like in the first Halloween, I'm a good person because, I'm satisfying Michael. He's got to kill. Guy's got to kill. No judgment there. But I got to live. So other people got to die. So at the end of the day, I'm the good guy.
Dang. He did what needed to be done. He made the hard call.
I would gladly throw myself at your house of booby traps to let you escape, Lance. And so just know you can always call me for those kind of things.
Adam, that is too sweet, man. You are just so cute and so nice. We should go out to sometime. Anyway, we can discuss that after the show.
Adam, you're the prettiest, nicest, and smartest girl in school, and you deserve better.
Get out of here. You deserve to die right now.
Oh man. Oh, I'm not even sure where to take it. You guys have knocked it out of the park. Can I give myself final girl status in this movie? Yes. And here's how I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
I get myself hired as a bus driver. A bus driver for the the insane asylum system.
That bus driver, yeah.
In Illinois. And as soon as Dr. Sartain lets the guy loose, I make a judgment call. This is the trolley problem, right? You go over one guy on the tracks or you go over a whole family of people.
Mm.
I decide nobody's getting away from this bus alive. And I get in the worst possible wreck I can imagine. I drive this thing off a freaking cliff directly into the reservoir where Adam's sitting in his submarine.
Clink, clink.
You guys I make sure that nobody on that bus walks out alive, including one Michael Myers. I go reverse Sully. I crash into the Potomac and kill everyone on purpose.
It's one of those things like anime where it's like, meanwhile, and I'm like, you know what? I think I gotta let this nuclear warhead air out. It's been sitting in this stuffy submarine, so I'm bringing it out, and then you see the bus just coming off the ridge directly toward it.
The friggin' front of the bus hits the tip of the nuke just perfect. Everything explodes. And there you have it. In order to protect the world, I sacrifice a bus full of mentally unstable people, including Dr. Sartain and myself, and everybody's safe. So I technically don't get final girl status, but I kind of do. I do, but I don't.
You do in spirit.
I win, but at what cost, you know?
And I like the idea that while all this is happening, Lanson is just murdering random people in his booby trap house waiting for Michael Myers. He's like, they're like caught in this trap. He's like,
his house is something out of Saw. And
exactly. Bear trap on the welcome mat.
He's just escaping through an underground tunnel, has no idea that Adam and I are taking care of business.
Just living in my little cave system, living off of rats and beef jerky.
It's like those stupid, like, it's like the, what's his name? Forget it. Forget the joke. But it's like, I'm just imagining them doing like thermal scans and they see like this tiny little pocket, just your body in it. Like CIA scans of like, we found Lance and Lappin. Well, there you have it. That is Halloween, the sequel reboot from 2018. We've broken it down. All three of us have gotten final girl status. And let me tell you guys right now, this is very special because we haven't done it yet, but we are rushing out to the theater to see Halloween Kills, the sequel to this movie. And we're going to put an episode out. That's right. The very next episode of Final Boy Status will be about Halloween Kills. This is as hot off the presses as it's going to get, guys. Because in terms of when this podcast is releasing, the movie will have come out yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope you guys enjoy us breaking our backs to give you content. As always, you can contact us, finalboystatus@gmail.com. We want to hear from you. We want to talk to you. And in the meantime, just keep up with the show. Keep watching the movies. Keep tuning in. We're having a good time, and we're having a spooky time. So that's what's important. Ladies and gentlemen, have a lovely night. We will see you at another time.
This has been an Underqualified Idiocracy media production, produced by Lanson Lappin, Adam Bone, and Luke Haueter. Theme music for the episode was written by Rachel Robison. You can hear more of Rachel's music at rachelrobinsonmusic.com. You can also find her on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram by searching at Robel Racheson. Artwork for the YouTube version of this podcast was created by Trinity Rodriguez. You can follow her on Twitter by searching at InstrinBaby to see more of her work. This podcast was recorded in Underqualified Studios and edited by Luke Haueter, with special thanks to Mike Fuchs for providing audio assistance. The illustrious voice acting providing the intro and outro of this episode is Shane Alvey of the Paradox Files voice acting. You can explore more of his work on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram by searching at The Paradox Files.